Thanks for joining us this morning on this Thursday here in Perth. I wanted to talk about a TV show that literally is taking the world by storm. It's especially interesting because the show is mostly dubbed. It's certainly not dubbed in its native home of South Korea, but around the rest of the world it is quite badly, really, I've got to say. Maybe it's the Korean language that doesn't necessarily sync up very well with the English, but whatever. I mean, that's a side note because it has been incredibly successful to the point of being the number one program on the Netflix platform. It's called Squid Game, and to say it's dystopian would be a massive understatement. It essentially is about the journey of 456 participants who are all in dire financial situations, and they're invited, albeit kidnapped and attracted to play a series of games, basic kids' games, for money, realising to their horror as the show goes on that they're trapped in a series of games where only one winner will take home the big cash prize, and the rest are essentially shot dead by the game's mysterious masked organisers. It's quite brutal. It's MA15 plus as a rating, and the bloodshed is what you'd expect from a show that's MA15 plus. Here's how Squid Game is promoted by the makers.
Every person standing here in this room is living on the brink of financial ruin. If you do not wish to participate, then please let us know at this time.
You will be playing red light, green light.
The thing we did as kids on the playground? Killing everyone out there was a...
Those who win all 6 games will receive a handsome cash prize.
So that's how it's promoted. I'd be interested to see if you've been watching it. It's being watched, as I say, with incredible numbers. I mean, the volume of views of streaming is just phenomenal. I'm only up to the end of the first episode. But more on that in just a moment. 133 882 if you would like to join the conversation. We're joined this morning by Professor Sora Park. Professor Park is a professor of communications from the University of Canberra, and significantly is also originally from Korea. Professor, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Have you watched this, any of it?
Oh, yes, I have watched the whole series. I actually watched it.
Right. Did you watch it with the English, or did you watch it with just the Korean translation?
So because I am from Korea and I speak Korean, I just watched it in its original language in Korean. But titles on it by default on my Netflix.
Oh, right. You couldn't get away from the subtitles. But tell me about this. What are the origins in terms of the dystopian nature of it, Professor? What are the origins in Korea?
So I guess it is exaggerated and dramatized. Of course, it's a drama, but the story is reflection of the reality in Korea, I suppose, that Korea's experienced enormous growth in economy since the war and now one of the richest countries. But its rapid growth means that there wasn't time to reflect and solve problems like inequalities or income disparities or social welfare and other problems. So I think the show is reflecting that all of those things exist together, the growth and the flashy economy, but also all these social problems.
Right. So the sort of desperation between, or the inequity, between the poor and the rich, and what it may take to climb out of the morass, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's why I think people resonate with it. Although it's a story about Korea, actually lots of people in other countries are also struggling financially or otherwise, and they're experiencing hardship. So I think people can resonate with, the desperation that the characters are experiencing in the drama.
Well, the producers have also been very clever because it's almost a sort of Game of Thrones situation, isn't it? They sort of kill off favourite characters along the way, which keeps you guessing.
Yes, yeah, and that element of perhaps like watching a reality show almost, with all this competition, not knowing how it ends, and people surviving. So I think that element is also very common and popular among global audiences.
I wonder what also is the sort of key to success in shows like this, because I think you'd agree. I mean, it is quite brutal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very violent, and yeah, it is very dramatized and sometimes uncomfortable to watch. But then also comes with some very beautiful, visual images, and very colorful, scenes, and it has games that children play. So there's elements of everything in it that appeal to different audiences.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's sort of this sort of adult drama, but centered around very infantile games.
Yes, which is although also very Korean. Those games are very Korean games, but there are similar games in other countries like in Australia or America that are very, very similar to the games they play. So I think that's the universal appeal, that most children games are similar across any countries, any cultures, and that to be shown in that show, that's what appeals to people.
Yes, tying that adult theme back to essentially child's games is very interesting. I wonder how much, on a global perspective, I wonder how much the sort of dystopian nature of it, the apocalyptic nature of it, also appeals, whether or not, that helps being in a pandemic. I'm thinking about other shows that have been huge too, things like Handmaid's Tale and even The Walking Dead, things that are apocalyptic by nature.
Yeah, I think people during COVID, everyone is very distressed, and uncertainty is stressful, and we all want to go back to living a normal life. So I think stories like this, although it's about economic hardship, it does relate to other kind of hardship, and of course people are also struggling economically as well during COVID, but the psychological stress that people are experiencing, that doesn't seem to end. I think people seek dramas like this because they can relate to it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Even sort of as manufactured as it is, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw, and you must have seen that story where a particular woman, well, previously unidentified, but just an everyday South Korean lady, has had thousands of prank calls and text messages after her phone number was put in the show. Well, accidentally, because the producers, the production company Siren Pictures, just chucked a phone, just made up a phone number, which appears as part of the invitation card that's given to the players to take part in the Squid Game, and apparently belongs to a particular lady in South Korea.
Oh dear, I did not know that.
She's copped thousands and thousands of calls and messages. Yeah.
Yes, I guess the company has to compensate for that. Oh my God, that would be so distressing.
I think they'll be paying her broadband fees for quite some time to come.
Yes.
It's very interesting. This must be just on the scale of success. TV, pictures, entertainment generally. This must be one of South Korea's best ever exports.
Yes, so it's one of the best dramas that's exported, I suppose, especially because Netflix invested heavily this year on Korean content, and this is one of them. So that certainly helped. But Korean content in other contexts, like movies, there was Parasite last year, which won the Oscars, and there are Korean musicians, like singers, K-pop singers, who are very popular overseas. So I don't think it's an isolated incident that people are watching Squid Game. It's in line with a series of various content that Koreans are making that do have global appeal.
Yeah.
And this is just one of them and happened to be on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah, no, K-pop's been huge. You're quite right. They've almost sort of taken over from Japan, haven't they?
Yeah, so I think it's quite different now with all the digital platforms and social media, how K-pop is, flowing into other countries. It's very global. Like, it's not just young people. It's not just people with Korean heritage. It's very heterogeneous group of people or fans who like these Korean sing songs and dramas. And it does seem truly global because there's no one place where it's really popular. It's spread across all the countries, across different age groups, across different cultures.
Yeah, well, this is certainly spread right across the globe. Thanks very much, Professor, for having a chat to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Professor Sora Park.